Hi friends, welcome back or to the channel. It is Friday afternoon. Just got home from work and then working out, and now we're disassembling my parts carburetor because we had a bit of a dilemma. So 2 days ago I got the fuel tank all tied in, got the key switch in, everything's pretty and nice, and fired the truck off, and it sounded really good for like 10 or 15 seconds, and that was it. It just shut itself off. So I thought maybe I just like had a wire wiggle loose or something, but no, that was not the case. What it was doing, because it wouldn't start back up, so I started troubleshooting, checked to make sure it still has spark and all that fancy stuff, and going through the process of elimination, realized that if I hold it wide open, she'll fire. So it was flooding, and now because of that, my oil is floating, which is super fun. If you guys remember, when I put this engine together, I told you that that is a rebuilt Edelbrock 1406, which it is. I did the rebuild on it. I know it was good because I put it on the shop truck and it ran good, and on this truck it did not. So I start doing some homework. Well, I don't know if I'd call it homework, but I start doing a little bit of, I pulled the top off the carburetor more than once because I thought, maybe because it's still the manual fuel pump on this motor. So I thought maybe, one of my floats was off, so it was just pushing fuel past. So I pulled the top off, checked, got my tape measure out, measured the hang and the float on the hang and the whatever on the floats. Perfect. Still dead on, exactly where I adjusted them to. Not the problem. Check the needles in the seats. Check the jets. Everything was still good, exactly the way I put it back together. So, put the carburetor back together, did it again. Now you see why I didn't film it, because it was just a bunch of taking the top on and off of the carburetor. Finally drove myself bonkers enough that let me show you, because we do have a parts carburetor here. So I finally took the top off the carburetor and tried to blow air through it. Yeah, it tastes like varnish. And realized with it sitting here, with the floats and everything completely collapsed, where it should be closed or full of fuel, I was able to push air through it. So then we started the mission of, or by we, I mean me. But now we knew exactly what was happening. So I started disassembling the carburetor, and let me show you what I found. Okay. So on these Edelbrocks, where your fuel line comes in and goes through this tube here, and then each of your floats allows fuel to come in through this little deal right here. Okay, sits inside this barrel, and then this flat part of your float, this piece sits against it. When your float drops, this lowers down. So this flat part of your float touches just the little end of this, and when your float needs fuel, this drops down out of this barrel and allows fuel to push in. Now the problem is with this one here, because you see it's wrapped in rubber around the tip. Well, this camera's not going to show it. Right here, the rubber did not make it all the way around the brass. You might be able to see it. You can see that little shiny bit right there at the top. That's where the brass is exposed. And that is why I think that is why my carburetor wasn't allowing, or wasn't stopping the fuel flow. It was just pushing past my float level, because that little tiny section that this camera won't even focus on, because I can't film in 4K, was not sealing because it wasn't rubber. So it was allowing just a tiny bit of push by, or push through, or whatever you want to call it. I mean, hopefully that's right, because I literally did. I readjusted the floats. I dropped them down 1/16 of an inch, because at full, you're supposed to be at 7/16 between the gasket mating surface and the top of your float, which I'm pretty sure I've explained to you guys before. I dropped mine down to 1/2 inch so it won't hold as much fuel in the bowl, but because this part of my float right here, let me see, because this part of my float was making contact with the body right here, and I thought that was the problem, was the floats just, they weren't closing all the way, they were making contact with the carburetor. But I think between adjusting the floats and changing that little plunger, I'm hoping that fixed the problem. But we're going to find out together, because I'm going to put this parts carburetor back together, and then we're going to bust this truck off and see what happens, see how it runs. Battery's hooked up. Let's see what happens. We can get this thing to bust off. Busted it right off, didn't it? Check this out. Fuel filter's immaculately clean. Now we just got to, let it run for 5 to 10 minutes and see what it does. Doesn't sound like it's flooding out. So that's good. That's great news. Let's see. I mean, the throttle response is there. It's running longer now than it did before. And it actually doesn't sound too bad, considering I've got it timed just at dead on 10 degrees for starters. Now that that's quieted down, now that it's not dumping fuel, I think what we're going to do is go ahead and drain the oil, because like I said, the oil is floating, which is not good. It's also bad for lubricity, but it's fine, especially for a brand new motor. It's fine, right? You can have gas in the oil. We're going to give it a quick oil change, and then I don't know what else we're going to do, but we'll figure something out. Also, check it out. I got it to work. I haven't quite figured these ones out yet, but we're working on it. Now that we put a little air in the May pop here, how awesome these weather cracks are. You should see them between the treads. I run some sketchy shit, but even me on these tires is like, oh, maybe we should change those. I highly recommend you find a set of these pass-throughs. This is my most used socket set in my entire tool collection. I use this ratchet and these sockets for everything. unless it's a weird spot where I need to get my a different ratchet up in there or something, but for the most part I use those ratchets or those sockets for everything. Look at that. You can see the fuel in that oil. I can. I don't know if you guys can, but I definitely can. We'll see how much ends up in the pan, because that's only like a 6-quart pan or something. I would show you, but I have to hold this drain plug so it doesn't splash out all over my face. Oh, I can smell the fuel. Whew. I'll tell you what, man, sitting under this closed quarter pickup with that much fuel in the oil, we might take a ride to outer space for a few minutes. I got oil all over my brand new gloves because the other day my daughter came over for an oil change, and when I took the oil filter loose, it leaked all over my gloves. That was super fun. Yeah, she was definitely a little over full, I would say, considering I only poured 5 quarts in this motor when I put it together. And that's I believe, an 8-quart pan, and it's damn near full, so it definitely had some fuel in there. Also, when you put your oil plug back in, you don't need to go so tight that you weld them together, but you do need to go pretty snug. I'm sure there's probably torque specs for that, but if you haven't paid attention to this channel, we don't do that here. I did torque a bunch of stuff on this engine, but that's just because I didn't want any stupid failures, you know what I mean? But for the most part, by and large, we don't do torque specs here. Now that we have the oil out of the engine, we're going to go ahead and put the finest dinosaur juice in there. The finest that CarQuest had for under 30 bucks. And I can already hear it. Should run a better oil, shouldn't run Fram filters, blah, blah, blah. When you guys pay for these builds, or you're the engine builder, you can criticize my filter choices and my oil choice, but until then, I'm going to run whatever filters I want and whatever oil I want. Typically, I run Quaker State oil in all my vehicles because I had an old boss that used to work for an analytics lab, and Quaker State tested the best and had the longest time before breakdown and all that stuff. But this oil was not purchased for this engine. This oil was purchased for a different project, but I forgot to buy some oil when I was at the parts store yesterday, so this is going to have to work, and I'll just replace it for the other project when we get to that one. So it'll be fine. I will just be thrilled to have oil in this motor that doesn't have fuel in it. These fancy billet valve covers have a baffle in them, and the baffle is really only like that far below where the oil cap goes in, so you can't pour oil in this thing very quickly. It's kind of a pain. I hope I fix this problem, because we're like this close to taking this thing for a rip. We do have a bit of a problem though. I am going to have to drop the transmission out of this thing because me and my infinite wisdom, when I put the clutch in this deal, this motor was initially out of an automatic, which means it had a flex plate, not a flywheel. The flex plate thickness is only, you know, 1/4 inch or so, and a flywheel is more like 1/2 inch to 5/8 thick. But I didn't have the bolts, and I didn't have the time to let the motor sit out of the truck without, or on my engine stand out here in the driveway, because I had to get the Dodge back in for the day and all that stuff. So, in a rush, in my infinite wisdom, I stuck the flex plate bolts in the flywheel just to put it in and get the clutch all on and stuff. That was a genius plan. I went down to CarQuest and had Nicole look up the specs and order me the correct bolts, which, by the way, if you're in the Carbon County area and you're looking for the best parts people in the business, CarQuest is where to go. Bobby at O'Reilly's is really good too, but CarQuest has been my go-to for well over a decade. So shout out to them. CarQuest is the largest donor for my car show as well. So again, shout out to Bose CarQuest. I appreciate you guys. Now, if only they would sponsor me some more parts for the build and the channel and stuff, I would be able to build more stuff faster. But, you know, as it is right now, all are on a budget. So now we have oil in this deal. I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes and run through all the valleys and all that stuff, and then we'll fire it up and let it run for a few minutes, and then we'll check the oil and see what she looks like. Also, when I was ranting and raving about CarQuest and all that shit, I forgot to finish my thought there. I went down and had Nicole order me the correct length bolts for my flywheel, so when those show up, it's honestly going to be easier for me to drop the transmission out of this truck than it is to pull the motor back out, because I don't have to take the hood off to drop the transmission. And it's an NP435, so it's only like 12 or 14 inches long, and it's heavy, but I don't know, that's what a floor jack's for. So I think the only thing I'm going to have a hard time with is the PTO shaft, but I'm going to climb underneath there right now and start lubricating the bolts and the universal joints on either end. I know they're not called universal joints, but, you know, I'm going to climb underneath here and lubricate everything on the PTO shaft, and then I'll keep doing that because the bolts are supposed to show up like Wednesday or something. So once they show up, then I think until between now and then, I'll get underneath there and I'll pull the PTO shaft out and get everything good to go. Pull the drive line, well, that's pretty much it. Pull the drive line, and yeah. So that's what I'm going to do between now and then. And I'm probably not going to do that on camera because, you know, it's just undoing bolts and stuff. So when my bolts show up, it'll be time to climb around underneath here and drop that heavy, greasy bastard. But until then, I'm going to find something else small to make a short video on for Tuesday, and then hopefully we'll be dropping a transmission for the Friday video. I know this week's video was late, but I'm trying to get into a more consistent upload schedule. I just don't know if I should do one video a week or two. So what do you guys think? Should I do one video a week or should I just do two? Let me know. Yeah, you can definitely tell that there's fuel in that oil, because that oil only has, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes worth of runtime on it, and it's, I don't know if you guys can pick it up, if the camera picks it up or not, but it's visibly got fuel in it. So before you say it, I know I should have changed the filter, but I didn't have one. So let's tickle the key and see what happens. Turn the idle up a little bit, maybe. It sounds pretty good, but sounds like she's idling at about 600. We need to have that up around 8. But before I knew it was flooding, I turned the idle down because it was running up like 850 or about 1,000 actually. Maybe a little more. Now, like I said, we're going to let it run for, I don't know, 5 minutes maybe. And then we'll check it. See what the oil looks like. Woo! She runs good. And that motor sounds nice. And we have an 1/8 of the tank of fuel. Pretty much. Oh, and we're charging. The only 2 gauges I have in the dashboard that actually work. But I have an oil pressure gauge, and I'm going to buy a water temp gauge to put right here, so it's fine. I've been telling you guys this whole build. Best way to eat an elephant is just one bite at a time. So we're doing stuff. We're just not doing a lot of stuff real fast because we're not in a hurry, you know. This build doesn't have a deadline on it or nothing, so I would rather take my time and know that it's done right than to, you know, panic and SEMA build it quick and half-ass and then just send it out into the world. We don't do that here. We prefer to take our time and do it the right way. Now that it's been shut off for a few minutes, let's pull the life stick out of it and give her a glance. See what it tells us. We're in the safe zone. There is still a little bit of fuel in the oil because, again, we did not change the filter. But this engine's only going to run for... Damn neighbor driving by in his side-by-side listening to a stereo. Now I got to cut out a whole big section of this video because I don't want to get copyrighted. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and just let this run for a couple of heat cycles, and then we're going to drop the oil and the filter out and actually look at the oil just to make sure that we don't have anything that's not supposed to be there. A little bit of oil, or not oil, a little bit of metal shavings in the oil is expected on a brand new motor. It's not a huge deal, but if it's alarming amount, I think I might just put it up for sale. I don't want to open this engine again. So it was just a quick little video today, just to show you guys kind of what goes on around here when I'm not filming. It's lots of stupid, small, incredibly tedious. You know, like I said, I had the top off this carburetor 5 times in 2 days, but I think I finally got it ironed out. I think so. Fingers crossed, and we're just going to keep plugging away. You know, a little ways to go, but considering where we started, we've already came miles and miles, you know. So I do believe that I'm going to wrap this one here, and just, I got a little bit of time to play with, and then Frank's going to be home and we're going to go to dinner. So I'm going to go in and wash up and clean up my mess out here. But if you're still here, thank you. I appreciate you stopping by today. like the video, subscribe to the channel, do all the things that the real YouTubers ask you to do at the end of their video, you know. And remember, guys, your dreams aren't going to work unless you do. And remember, most importantly, persistence is the key. I realistically could have just pulled the plug on this Edelbrock the first time it started acting up on me, but I like Edelbrock carburetors. So I was persistent and figured out my problem, and now it seems like we're good to go. So thanks for watching, guys, and I'll see you on the next one.